Okay, I think we are all back together, so I'll call the meeting to order. And from our in-camera session, I believe we need to have a motion to apply under the MSP program to work on Emerson Park and possibly the regional pathway project. Kelly?
Yeah, also move to reapply to the government for that funding, and as you said.
Ariana, did you get information about when we moved out of Cameron? Who moved us out? Perfect. Okay. Yes. All right. Any further discussion on that, Brian?
Just if that needs to be in the motion about asking for an extension or not. I know you mentioned it, Matt.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt.
Okay. And to add in, with this application, we also ask for an extension, if possible, on the timeline of spending. Ellen and Wayne.
So how far do we get then for that 800? How much do we have? 894 or 5? How much do we think to spend?
Mark's preliminary estimate from the county facility down to Township Road 18-2 would be 574 down there, if that's as far as we went there. I think Todd's improvements that he presented at the budget planning meeting were right around that 350. It might come in a little bit higher because I think Todd's estimates were doing a lot of the work in-house on our own. So I think between the two, we should make some pretty good progress on that grant funding.
So do we need to talk anything more about that, or Todd and Mark will just proceed? Awesome. And of course you have to do the letters. Yeah. Yes, sorry, Wayne.
On this pathway, what is the plan? Okay, we're gonna spend a bunch of money now, then where's the rest of the money coming from? You want to do this project. So we're approving a project that I don't see any plans for.
Well, Tracy would have more of an update, maybe, I'm not sure. Working on the plan, that would be part of the plan, that stretch of road, I believe.
So how far is this, how many kilometers is this gonna buy us?
Well, Matt explained just a second ago that with this, to get to the end of this road is about 500,000, right?
Okay, so it's just going to the end of the road.
That's just what we are proposing to do with this grant. The plan of the whole system is to go out to Kinbrook Island.
Yeah,
and it's
there's been no vote in council to approve that.
Exactly, Wayne, because if you recall at our last meeting, I gave an update that the committee has done a preliminary meeting, and they've been working, Jeff has been working with Jessica Surgener from the city to develop an actual site plan. And then they've got some preliminary work to do. And then we are going to be coming back to joint services here in the next little bit with sort of a high level budget. And then from there, funding and sources will be looked at. So there's been sort of some background talk on funding sources, but nothing's been decided upon. And it's part of the economic recovery development task group to, that we can create some jobs locally and stuff like that. And part of just bringing something like this to our community. But at this point in time, we're just waiting for some preliminary information to be drawn up, and then it'll be brought back. So it's That's sort of where we're at, but the end destination is to end up at Kinbrook Island.
So which group is going to raise the 75%? Because we had a policy set last, I think it was last meeting, where that recreation policy that we've got. Any new projects would be that the community has to raise 75% and the county will throw in 25%. So which group is going to raise the 75%? Because this is a recreational project.
Yeah, I think, you know, that policy is geared towards our facilities. I think you make a good point. It is recreation based on the pathway. The proposal to take it to the end of Township Road 18-2 is solely based on the availability of the municipal stimulus grant funds. It gets that part of the project off your plate and frees up anybody needing to fundraise for that portion of it, if council's agreeable to that.
And it's a project that we feel we could have control over compared to the options.
Okay, we go ahead with this and it's $500,000. If we agree to do this whole project, is that $500,000 going to be considered our portion? Say it costs $2 million, our half, it's going to be $500,000. Then we would only have to put another $500,000 in there to complete the project. Am I?
Well, Wayne, I don't think any of that has been talked about as of yet. We know it's going to cost money, and that would be a start certainly, or a finish on what our part would be.
I just feel uncomfortable with going ahead with the project. We haven't even really agreed whether we're going to do the whole thing, because we have no numbers, we've got no plans, and then we're throwing $500,000 at it already.
Tracy, Clarence?
In my opinion, I don't believe that it's, the opinion is out there that it's going to be a county funded only project. This is something that's, in my opinion, that's being looked at regionally. You know, and it's just a case of, it's been something that's been talked about for years about having this pathway. It's not something that's new, for sure. But as far as, nobody's ever said, oh, the county, you're going to pay for it all. That's never come out. Funding sources, there's been different things talked about, and until we get sort of a higher level budget put together, then we'll know what we're looking at for expenses, right? And then we can go, okay, let's go from there.
Okay, I'm just being maybe overcautious here, but we started off last September. Staff came with 10 projects to take this, for this money. We rejected that and we decided we're going to pave a road. Come May or whatever, and find out we can't pave the road because we can't get the land. So we changed that. We're going to a solar project. Now it's just about the 1st of August. Oh, that's not working out. So we've already wasted, what, 7-8 months? Now we're deciding to go with, put a bunch of money of this money into a pathways program. Again, we have done no planning. We have nothing in place. We're going to throw $500,000 at it. When are we going to throw money at stuff that we have the plans in place? This, I think, is irresponsible. Like Emerson, Todd there has the money, has the plans, everything to get that done, makes sense to me. But this, nothing has been agreed with our partners or anything to get this done, but we're going to throw $500,000. I just say, be careful. That's all I'm saying right now.
Wayne, the only reason that we're trying to use money that is available from the province, correct? So would you prefer that we leave it there?
I'm thinking we had 10 projects last fall that staff had already vented and decided this would be good to do. Maybe we should have looked at some of those because they're already in the process of being planned.
In mind, this had to be a new project. We did have a number of projects come to us. I remember Emerson, I remember the road paving. So I'm not sure where the walkway would fit into it, but ultimately I believe that is something that is going to be done. And it's an opportunity to put that money into it rather than giving it back to the province. Clarence?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It couldn't be a project that we were already planning. So if you got a list of 10 that we're already planning to do sometime.
List of 10 was something Lane put together when he brought this grant program to us, and I think it was, we had about 2 weeks in September to make our decision because there was a deadline, remember, Matt? And we had 10 projects that Lane put together. This is what we could probably put it at. And one of the problems was there was nothing there that was 800,000. We had to put a couple of them together back last fall. And those were all projects that we hadn't been in the process of planning. Lane just brought these were ones we could do.
Yeah, I don't think it's lost on anybody that this is not the situation that anybody wanted to find themselves in. 2 failed projects for getting some stimulus spending into the economy. And I think it's important that we remember that's really what the province is trying to do, is kickstart the economy post-COVID and post the economic downturn. I would have to pull that list of 10. I know there were a few roads on there. I don't know if the aqueduct was one that was actually pitched on there. I know Emerson Bridge Park improvements were on that list. I can't recall if the pathway was on there or not, but I mean, the facts are there's an envelope of funding available. We know from the community, we have projects which they've prioritized. The pathways coming from the Economic Recovery Task Force. So I think you've got support in the community for moving forward with that. You take care of a couple of kilometers of pathway, take care of Emerson Park. The suggestion that we put forward 2 applications is to make sure you've got more than just one alternative for spending the money. I mean, if we let Todd loose, I'm sure he and his crew could really make Emerson Bridge Park something special. But, you know, there's always a list. The challenge is getting things done on time, on budget, and things that are within your control. I think that's one of the things, one of the lessons I'm learning out of this grant program is we probably need to spend some time developing some shovel-ready projects where we've acquired land, we've got engineered designs, and if the province ever decides to stimulate the economy, we can go with things that are certain, because it's just been a maddening process, I think, for council and for administration trying to meet the deadlines and finding a project that fits just right.
Anything further on that? All right, we have a motion on the floor to proceed with that application for Emerson and for section of Pathway South. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And so we'll move back to our agenda, which is at item 8.2, 8.1, actually, we need to make a motion to accept Todd's report. Ellen makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And Todd is back for our 8.2 item, which is something that we've been hearing a bit about of recent. So, Todd, I'll let you take it away.
Yes, thank you. So municipalities have the opportunity to declare a state of agricultural disaster for significant events that impact their area. I think it's fairly evident that we've had an insignificant amount of rain. We've had an incredible amount of days over 30 degrees, and the winds have not helped much at all. So we were reached, or it was reached, Reeve Douglas and Councillor Chrisman were contacted by a representative from the Alberta beef producers just to inquire whether the county was going to be declaring a state of ag disaster. So kind of just started to look into things a little bit. It's not something that we've done, at least since I've been here, I don't believe. And I think maybe a little bit just because we're relatively unique, I think, in our area where our egg producers, our cattle producers are typically also irrigation producers. So their lack of feed is not always as big of a concern as maybe other areas are. And yeah, I think we have such a very diverse area that maybe the disaster isn't as imminent as in other areas that don't have that infrastructure in place. Now, there's certainly those that fall out of that. There's certainly farmers that produce primarily in dryland areas and graze in dryland areas, and that they would absolutely be hurting big time, big time. So I kind of attached the RMA guide that they have in place for, you know, the whys and the hows of declaring an ag disaster. And I think it just kind of, we need a little bit of record keeping maybe, but that's kind of maybe on my end to just to make sure. I mean, we don't need that record keeping to make any declarations today if you guys so choose. But it'll take a little bit for me to pull together, I think, just to make sure we have a full picture for the heat, the winds, the amount of moisture we've received this season, those kinds of things, just to make sure that once it's done or before we do it, that we have the right information to send forward. There are other municipalities, when I wrote this, they were contemplating it. There are other municipalities that have currently declared a state of agricultural disaster. I know I've heard of Foothills, Cypress, Vulcan, for sure I've heard, and there was another one from the north this morning that came through. So those are the ones that I know of. So I mean, they're obviously Cypress and Vulcan are right around us. I have not heard anything from the MD of Tabor, nor from the special areas, but maybe if you guys have heard more, that would be great.
Well, and I don't think any of those counties are a 90% irrigation country either. And I mean, really, has it affected our irrigators? Well, maybe a little more pumping, but other than that, certainly if I was still haying, I'd be pretty happy about this year, because it'd be the best quality hay that it was ever put up for a long time. And so, I mean, it works both ways, and I just think we're in a different position than those other counties.
Yeah, and I think that it makes us unique, and we maybe win a little bit this year, the irrigated producers, for sure. So, you know, out of our 1.5 million acres, I think we're right around that 300 or 310,000 that's irrigated. And out of that 1.5, I think about 900 is actually prairie. So we're about half and half, I think, kind of dry land to irrigation, sort of, kind of. So that's kind of, but yeah, no, you're right, for sure.
Well, I was wondering if you could word your, if we so choose, I was looking at option 2 and word it in such a way that it just identifies the dryland portion of our county. So declare a state of agriculture disaster because of drought conditions as it relates to dryland acres. because I agree with Clarence. I mean, you know, we have irrigated acres here. There has been no indication from the district that there's going to be a rationing of water. So ultimately, it's going to be probably some of the best crops, or they'll be up there this year due to the ability to put water on when you have sunshine. And but I guess I was just wondering, would that be ever a consideration to word it in such a way so that the dry land, because I mean, we do have a significant amount of dry land farmers, and they will be facing a write-off. Is there insurance? Absolutely. The other question that I have, and I think I know the answer, does us declaring a state emergency for the dry land farmers affect anything? Like, what's the ramifications of that? From the information that I've gleaned from your report and from other information I've read, is really, it's sort of token. I don't know if you can, like, it's going to be determined by Alberta Agriculture and by the federal agriculture as far as which areas are going to be identified as. So does this change anything by us making a declaration?
Yeah, and I seen the look on your face when you said token, and you're right, I don't think that's the exact right word, but is it a meaningful declaration, I guess? And that was one of the interesting parts of the RMA document. You know, it said, is this a disaster that's affected your entire municipality, or is it certain pockets of your municipality? And I would have a hard time saying it's affected our entire municipality, just because of how much irrigation we have. But the other thing, we don't necessarily need to make this decision today. You know, when I went through, and I know you guys probably went through too and read the RMA document wholeheartedly, there's a lot of information that I can gather to bring to you to show you that where we're at in terms of a 10-year level of rain, a 15-year level of heat or excessive heat or those kinds of things, and we can make that decision at the beginning of August meeting. We can make it at the September meeting. When I talked to the guys from the Drought and Excessive Moisture Action Group, I believe they're called, kind of a group of, well, it's multiple people, right? I think the Alberta beef producers are on there. There's some crop commissions. AAAF is on there. It's a group of people that come together to determine the impacts of these things and their recommendations to the province. And, you know, they don't even meet until the beginning of August, because they said, the way I understood it from our fella, he said, a lot of things are set in stone at the beginning of August. You know, if you haven't had enough moisture to get a harvest, that's set in stone by August, for sure, in general as a province, right? If you've had too much moisture and you haven't been able to plant a crop by even a barley or a short season something by that third week of July, that's a disaster, right? But there's a lot of things that can happen between there. So declaring one does not have to be done today. I think talking about it is great, absolutely great. And the other thing, sorry, I should finish that first. Talking about it is great. Telling Todd, bring back some information. Let's see what the history looks like. Let's see if history tells us this is a one-year disaster or a multi-year coming up down the pipe. Like, what does this tell us? I mean, I can do that, and I think that would be prudent a little bit. But the other thing, declaring a state of agricultural disaster doesn't trigger funding from the province. In fact, last year, I believe there was 12 municipalities from one region of Alberta that declared an agricultural disaster, and there was no trigger for help in that case. So 12 out of 69, but in a relative pocket, right? It never triggered anything. So I don't want to call it token, and I don't think that's what you meant either. But it just doesn't have value to just jump on with the rest, I guess.
Lionel?
I have a little trouble running and asking for emergency relief now. We have many tools in our tool belt to deal with this already. We have crop insurance, there's grass insurance, there's a multitude of support programs already. And if we're not using them, then you've taken that risk yourself, because they are there and they've actually been very lucrative. The grass insurance program, I know, was scoffed at a little bit, but it's there. So I have trouble asking for more help than it's already there.
I reached out to a couple large farmers in my area, mostly dry land, and the reply I got was, we might be 2 weeks early to be talking about this yet. First week of August, come back and ask me again, is what I heard twice in 2 different conversations. So yeah, it's good to have the heads up, and I like the idea of getting past and predicted information. But I think we listen to our area farmers who know, I mean, they're not pressing any panic buttons yet. They're still optimistic, the 2 that I spoke to. So let's see what happens.
Also, I think if we go that route, there will be more factual information available. And I mean, I think if we're going to make this a genuine type of tool, don't want to use that word again, but we need to have this condition stuff developed as well. Take a look at some of the stuff that goes through our provincial association to say, indeed, it's based on some facts rather than emotion. Of course, we all want to support our agricultural industry, and we do. But 2 weeks from now, we'll have even more facts available. Todd, might that group have their information by then? Possibly.
Yeah, I'll keep in touch with my fellow. I think he's in the Starland County now as their fieldman, so it's...
he's part of that.
I can keep in touch with him, yes.
Yeah, perfect. I've had a phone call from Jordan Christensen, who is the head of the special areas, and he was asking yesterday about what we were going to do. I said we're having the discussion today, and even, you know, in areas like that, there's parts of the area that has had rain. So it's, I think, perhaps more east and more north of us in some cases. And if you've traveled at all, which I haven't, but Brian, you mentioned you've been to Stettler recently, and we're quite surprised at the crops.
Yeah, I went up to Stettler about 10 days ago and drove Highway 36 on the way up there and then over through Castor. And yeah, when you get basically about 10 kilometers south of Castor, you can really notice the improvement. Greener fields, greener grass. And then in Stettler alone, I mean, the crops were really wonderful. Like, they looked like bumper crop. And then on the way back, I went through Drumheller, and really you notice the difference about halfway between Stettler and Drum, where it starts to fade again. So you're right. It's different counties are going to experience the same things as us. There's going to be parts that are going to be great and some parts that are going to be right off. And yeah, it's like Lionel said too. We have the means for crop insurance, and unfortunately, sometimes those securities are in place.
Marie, would you like to have a motion? Because then I would make one for option 1, which is compile supporting data and bring back for future discussion, which we could even say September if that would work better for you. Well, I think we could, do we need a motion for that, or just direction? Direction's probably good to compile supporting data, which is, we do need to have. So we don't have it today. So let's get some facts in place, considering our unique area, with as much irrigation as we have, and we'll put it back on the agenda for August the 5th. No, 1st. August the 1st? No, that's July. The 8th? Thank you. No, it's the 5th, because it's Sunday is the 1st. Yeah. That's a Sunday. Okay, Todd, that's everything for you today. Thank you for keeping your eye out on these conditions, and we'll hear more. We will move down to item 9.5 now, Rural Municipalities of Alberta, RMA meetings with ministers. Something that has to be set up. So Ariana wanted us did I miss something? No, we did that. Yeah. Meetings with ministers, the only, I guess, municipal affairs, as far as continuing the lobby about the tax base, might be something still on the agenda for November, but seems like it's really early to do this, but I guess you could just slot in some times and cancel them if you wanted, is what Ariana's thinking. So, ideas? Wayne?
Ask the minister next time they give grants to give us a little more time to plan something. You know, don't give us 2 weeks to decide what we want to do.
Well, it's a bit longer than 2 weeks. We've just run into a few problems. You got a better memory than I.
Yeah, you're testing even my memory, which is no good without a database or digital records repository, but.
So what are you thinking, folks? We've met with ministers of transportation, municipal affairs, and environment in the past. Kelly?
When I saw this on the agenda, I immediately thought, this is the discussion for the new council, because, and I understand and appreciate Ariana's wanting to book times and things, but I think it's going to depend on the climate of the new council as to what and where they want to go, and if they're comfortable speaking with the minister right away. Matt has his hand up.
Yeah, I don't think we disagree. The challenge is, if we want to request a meeting, it needs to be in by September 10th. So.
I would suggest maybe do municipal affairs for sure. That's, you know, and then you, I mean, you can cancel. You don't have to. You don't have to. Tracy?
Well, and I think too, the Minister of Transportation is always one to put on board. There's always things to discuss there, and municipal affairs for sure.
Environment was usually specific to some of the issues, and I see that they have come up with a whole new plan for online dealings, so they're getting out of their paper state anyhow, which is good news. It's taken them a couple of years to get there, but they'll be gone by the time they actually get it working. Brian?
I think this is an opportunity for a new council to also engage some of the ministers. I mean, put yourself when you were first elected and you're sort of that deer in the headlights. Well, you know what, sometimes it's nice to sit down with a minister, and they might not be there very long, but at least you're starting to develop relationships. And so I would suggest that, you know, those are the two for sure. And even agriculture, we're a big agriculture district, get them to know that agriculture is still important in our life. So you that are still around the table, you can mentor the new ones, and by all means. So.
You have to include 2 specific policy items. I think they're forgetting there's an election. Anne-Marie.
Just to add to what Tracy and Brian also mentioned, with transportation, I think especially when you have new councillors, there's always that confusion between county roads and provincial roads, and it might be good just to put on the agenda an update on roads that they are maybe paving or giving a new overlay, and so the new group
that would be
and the old group will get an update.
So transportation update on secondary highways, or one item of information. Partnerships, throw that in. They should know about us. So that's for transportation. For municipal affairs, I would say taxation. And Anne-Marie and Tracy?
Municipal affairs would also be a good one to talk about uneven numbers in divisions. You know, if you have a division with 365 people and a division with 1,300, what the recommendations are for changes to that.
Could be. Tracy?
Mine for the Alberta transportation would be just bridges, sort of an update on their mandate over bridges and how that all works with the municipalities, and because that's something that's I think needs to be talked about with transportation.
Bridge files.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Clarence?
I think we overrate our meetings with ministers immensely. Just write a letter, tell them what our problems are. Let's get a discussion going beforehand. Talk about it beforehand. Make sure you know what the issues are. Make sure they know what the issues are. Make sure that we've done our homework. Don't just go to a minister and say, well, we'd like a bridge here or there. Let's do some homework. And you know, I think we're wasting his time and we're wasting our time by doing most of these meetings. That's just my thought, and you can disagree.
Ariana, isn't the first council meeting of the new council not until the 4th of November? And RMA is the week of the, which one's first, AUMA or RMA? I forget. They're right 1 week apart. So it's really, this just goes to show how little the government is paying attention to the things that are sent out. Like truly, eh? So I think you could put an item on the agenda mentioning that. How can you expect new councillors to come up with items for agendas in September when they're not here, and even in November when they finally get together?
And that's my point exactly. It takes a good year for new councillors to learn what roads we are responsible for, and otherwise. So why would we go in with a group of councillors that haven't been, yeah, so I say we don't this year, and then that'll be at the forefront of the new council when they get the opportunity, either in the spring or the fall of 2022. I think it's premature. I don't think we're ready. I don't think the new council would be ready.
Wayne and Ellen.
I just looking at this schedule here, the first meeting in November for the new council is of the 11th, which is Remembrance Day. Does Ariana need to, a motion to get that canceled or moved?
It's happened.
We already did that.
Oh, did it? Oh, sorry. See, I told you my memory's not very good.
Ariana, you got some ideas. If you want to send a letter, go for it.
She actually runs it anyway, so what the heck?
I mean, you're looking as well at registrations, right? Oh, here it is, the RMAs from November 23rd to 26th. And so there's no information yet on that. The Municipal Affairs Stakeholder Relations team are really getting hot to trot, obviously. Perhaps they should be reminded that it's not fair for councillors to make decisions now that aren't going to be around. So I don't know. What do you want to do, guys? Ellen?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you too good, but I agree. Why do we dictate what the new council is going to feel is important to them? And I also think, yeah, write a letter first, get the issues known to them, and vice versa. And I think there's a lot of time in the next conventions coming up, if there's really some issues they would like to discuss. So let's hang off.
Accept it as information. Tracy?
Well, just going back to the thought of that meetings could be canceled. To me, so Ariane, can we not change the topics? Like, so we put something together now and we get these meetings booked. And if the desire of the new council is to not go, we could cancel. Or if they would like to go, at least these meetings are booked, if they so choose, and they could come up with their own topics, no? Or just timing would be too close to change topics, probably.
You can change topics when you walk in the room.
Yes.
Just that they don't have their pat answers ready. It's good to actually change topics when you not walk in the room. You're right. You know what? If we send in something, there's an option left open. The new council can cancel it all, and then it's their decision rather than ours. You know, that gives them the option to figure it out. Is that okay, guys? Let Ariana go ahead and send in the times, and if they don't want them, it can be canceled. Ariana?
Just to confirm, that was Municipal Affairs, Transportation, and Agriculture?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you mentioned, no, it's just about the meetings. Oh, and the next one is the AUMA. Sending a person to the AUMA as well. Okay, Anne-Marie, what do you think of this one?
Well, with this one, I felt like Kelly. I thought, well, why? Let's not do it this close to an election. Just leave this alone till next year. No, that's not what you were thinking? Like, if people, yeah. Most people won't even have their own conference behind them, let alone go to somebody else's conference.
And that's, they all think that councillors go to a lot of conventions. They have a meeting on the 4th and they're at 2 conventions the next 2 weeks sort of thing. Yes, Ariana.
I just want to say something about this one. Yeah, that is a pretty intense schedule for November for new councillors. The reason it's on here is the hotel bookings are difficult, so they release them, people jump on them right away. So if you don't want to send anybody this year, that's awesome for me. That's one less ulcer I can have.
Should we just leave that one alone? People okay with that? Okay. There you go, Ariana. Your big break of the day. I'll just defer that for another year. Okay. Assessment model changes. Haven't heard anything much more about that, although the RMA has sent out some information in their things that send out their newsletter about some of the AER work that is going on, and hoping municipalities participate. There is one part of one of their things they're changing where they actually are looking at the viability of oil and gas companies and adding a look at taxation, municipal taxation, and where that company is with that. Doesn't say anything anywhere about how they're going to force or change anything, but so take a look at that if you're interested. So we are at Councillor payment sheets. Any questions about that? Compensation review? Tracy?
Motion to approve as recommended by our compensation committee.
Tracy's made a motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Checks for payment. There's no checks for payment. There's a payment register for the small checks. Questions in regards to any of those? Clarence will move the acceptance of the payment register. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Request for function of council. And there's a committee report from Hubie regarding rural housing and rural crime watch. Or any other reports? Hubie.
Justice Minister Casey Madu is coming to Redcliffe tonight. So as part of rural crime, I'd like to go to that meeting. I was invited with EID and the rural crime chairman. So I was requesting if that's a function of council to go to that meeting.
Could I get a motion for that? They're not coming to Brooks. I'm attending a meeting tomorrow. I'm confused. There's town halls. That also came out from RMA. That was a publication from Tasha, a list of the town halls. The closest one I saw was Redcliffe or Drumheller, which was going to be in Munson in the community hall there. And then I get this invitation to go to a meeting tomorrow at 11 o'clock at City Hall with Minister Madu. And there's an agenda. It's not a town hall, obviously. It's just a meeting. So I don't know if this is in lieu of a town hall in Brooks, or not sure what's going on, but anyhow, Hubie's heading off to Redcliffe to attend that. And I'm hoping that rural policing and the whole, well, not so much rural policing, I'm curious if the concept of the RCMP versus provincial policing will be part of.
Yes, there will be.
The feedback there.
Yep.
Good. Yeah. That's an important issue. I just can't believe that the province would proceed with the, I don't think they have the support and the costs involved. Like, let's just do better with what we've got. Wayne?
You've got your ear to the, is there any support for a provincial police force? I've heard nothing.
Well,
Where's it coming from?
it came from a task force that was set up quite early in the UCP's term. They went around the province, a group of, a panel. It was a panel, I believe, and that was where they apparently got the feedback from for some of these issues that they're looking at, Wayne. So they've gone into quite an in-depth study, hiring consultants, of course, who provided a report, and there's been a fair amount of information circulated about it, and I think it's urbans and rurals are pretty solid on, like, let's just work with the RCMP. But, yeah.
Tanya Thorne is the spokesperson on that for Okotoks.
Yeah, for the AUMA, yeah, she's been involved for sure. Anne-Marie?
So I'll make a motion for UB to go as a function of council.
Okay.
And in your case, you don't need to have that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried, and I am glad Hubie is going because I might have to go on otherwise. So perfect. All right, joint services, post agenda. Minibus is carrying on as always, Matt. That's good. And we do have another item for in camera. So we need to move back in camera. Tracy will move us in. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.